CQ. CQ. This is W9GFO here. Come back.
I make my living writing about murder, torture, corruption. Other people go to work and deal with markets or construction, education or finance. I go to work and think of malice and crime and evil.
I'm like every other novelist. I make up most of what I write about. When evil appears in my books, it's a mixture of my imagination, research, things I see in the newspapers, and things I see on TV.
I've noticed a blithe use of the word evil. It seems an archaic term, tied to an old-fashioned view of our world. But the word evil doesn't seem to be fading out of use. You hear it all the time about things that are happening now.
States like these and their terrorist allies constitute an axis of evil.
A truly monstrous evil.
Three of the aggressive impulses of an evil empire.
Criminal evil behavior.
It's a word that politicians seem to use in desperation about events that are beyond their control. But what do we mean by it? Does it have any meaning? Over the next few weeks, I'm setting off on a journey to explore how the notion of evil functions in the modern world. To begin with, there's an issue about where evil comes from, an issue that's haunted me all my life.
Evil poses a problem for those of us who were brought up Christian. It's usually formed as a question in childhood. I remember asking my mother. I may even have been gallus enough to ask the minister at my local kirk. It's this: who makes the bad things happen, and why?
It's the first question of all. How could the beneficent God that I was taught about at church and school allow people to be tortured, murdered, to suffer? I didn't get any satisfactory answers back then, but things have moved on.
We're going to start today with our study of the problem of evil. Within the Christian, the Jewish and the Muslim tradition, God is good, omnipotent, all-powerful, omniscient, all-knowing, and evil exists. Now, if these premises are held together, for many people that represents a contradiction. That God cannot be good and allow evil to exist in the world. He can't be all-powerful because if he is, he would get rid of evil. He can't be all-knowing. Surely a good God who knows about the extent of evil in the world would act to get rid of it.
Well, it's a major problem if you say God is wholly good. Look at the universe around you. I mean, earthquakes and all sorts of things happening, people dying, killing each other, natural disasters. How on earth could a good God do this? So when you had the earlier religion, well, you've got lots of gods. Some of them are angry and some of them are not. Or, in early Hebrew thought, probably God was sometimes angry and sometimes not. So God himself was ambiguous and could just open up the earth and swallow thousands of people if he wanted to, and there's nothing much you could do about it. And I think in the early Old Testament, you get that idea, God can do what he wants. And when you say God is good, you really mean something like God is good to me, I hope. Or you try to get God on your side. But that does develop later into the idea that God is a moral ideal, and that's when the problem comes in. How can you hold that together? It's been a major problem ever since, and a lot of people think it's insoluble. You really can't solve it in any way. It's a major problem.
It still is.
It's still a major problem, yeah.
And for many people, that is the single most difficult problem for belief in a good God. Any belief in God is undermined by the existence of evil if we can't offer some convincing philosophical solutions for it.
The problem of evil has engaged the attention of theologians and philosophers since before Christianity. Peter Vardy is Vice Principal of the Theological College at London University. He's written a book about this very puzzle.
I think one of the most powerful challenges was put forward by Dostoevsky in The Brothers Karamazov. And what Ivan Karamazov is saying is, even if there is a God, and he accepts the existence of a God, whatever end God has in view, the suffering of children is too high a price to pay. Remember, in traditional Western and Orthodox theology, children under the age of 7 are held to be innocent. And he effectively stands in judgment on God and accuses God of allowing innocent suffering in order to achieve some end. And whatever the end is, universal salvation, salvation for some, he is rejecting the idea that this can be worth the suffering of innocent children. Now, that is a very powerful attack. It's an emotional attack, and in a way it undermines all the traditional theodicies. It says nothing is worth this. It's probably been the most influential attack on God, starting from the problem of evil in the last 130 years.
Things like evolution, suggesting that humans have actually evolved.
Different thinkers have tried to explain how a good God can allow evil to exist.
Rather than having started perfect and fallen short.
Julie Arliss is teaching her class some of the different suggestions that the Christian church has come up with for explaining the problem.
Within the Christian tradition, there are two traditionally offered solutions to the problem of evil. And these are called theodicies. A theodicy is an attempt to justify God in the face of so much evil in the world. The first one we're going to have a look at is the Augustinian theodicy. And within the Augustinian tradition, there are two major influences, the Bible and Greek philosophy.
I like St. Augustine's notion that just as darkness is the absence of light, so maybe evil is an absence, the absence of good.
No, sadness is an absence of
The idea has been current for over 2,000 years. It's still the mainstream Christian solution.
So he said that God can't actually take this evil away now that it's in the world, because he can't actually take away nothing, because it's an absence of something else.
That would preclude absolute evil. It doesn't exist, because you can't have an absence of nothing on it.
That's right. You can't have an absolute evil, because absolute evil would be a falling short completely from what it is to be created. If God has created the whole world and created it good, then to be 100% falling short.
All these solutions, these theodicies, are ingenious, maybe a bit too ingenious. Could we be asking too much of God? He started everything off, but that doesn't mean he's responsible for everything that happens along the way.
My own view really would be that you have to say God is good, not in the sense in which you've got a being who wants everybody to be happy. I think that would be absurd. And maybe one of the troubles with modern day Christianity is it's got an over-sentimental view of God sometimes. You know, God is this loving father, and who would do that to their children? You know, really, it's not. It has its place, that talk. But if you make the creator of everything, plagues, earthquakes, as well as everything else, into a loving father, it doesn't fit really. So what you could do is you just have a more austere view of God. I mean, you say God is the creator. God is just the source from which all things come. You could then say, well, he's good in the sense that he's perfect. He is himself of supreme value in himself. But you can't assess God morally. It's not like that. And how the universe comes from a God like that, well, we don't know. That's just what happens.
I was surprised to get such an inconclusive answer from a philosopher and theologian like Keith Ward. But Peter Vardy too feels that philosophical argument is inadequate to deal with the problem of evil. He feels that in the end, it comes down to a simple matter of faith.
I think we need, maybe at the end of philosophy, to come to a point where we have two people. One, Ivan Karamazov, with this extreme position. The other is the figure of Job. And I think Job's reaction is going to be to say, in the end, even though I cannot understand God's purposes, I am willing to trust that God's love and God's justice will bring good out of this, and that it is necessary in a way that I cannot begin to understand. Now, I'm a philosopher, and tremendous regard for philosophy, but I think there is a place where philosophy comes to an end. And faced with the obscenity of evil, I'm not sure philosophy has the final answers. We can talk about different types of theodicy, but I think we have to confront that reality, and we either have to side with Ivan or Job. And I think many believers would side with Job.